trading indices, Australian index, and we're on the monthly chart, as you guys can see. And on the monthly chart, we actually have some very interesting price action movement where the market had given us this pattern, which is an inverted head and shoulders pattern. And as you can see, this would be the left shoulder, this area over here would be the right hand shoulder, and this would be the head. To add to that, we can also see that the neckline of this particular pattern is more or less at that point. And you guys also know that whenever we have these patterns, what we want to see happen is price closing sufficiently above the neckline, right? And then in the future come back to the neckline to give it a test, and where the neckline is generally where we look for those potential buy opportunities, especially if the neckline aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? So essentially what we want to see happen next is price coming back to the neckline to test it, and as I said, at that point is where we would look for further buy opportunities, and especially if that area aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool. So for now, I'm just gonna actually mark that area, which would be my neckline. And another thing that I also want to bring to your attention is that we had this area over here, and that area is actually the previous all-time high, right? This area over here. And normally, whenever we have previous all-time highs and price closes sufficiently above the area, what we want to see happen again is price come back to the area and then continue to move further up, right? So at this level over here, where the support area is, which is over here, is where actually a lot of institutions like bankers and insurers will be looking to push the market further up, right? Anyway, let's go down to the weekly chart and see what's happening down there. And in fact, before we do, let's just actually check to see if the neckline aligns with any key numbers that we have on the Fibonacci retracement tool. And there goes our Fibonacci tool, and let's have a look. And so far we can see that your price from where it is revert to this level, that level, which is the neckline, by the way, of that inverted head and shoulders pattern, aligns with, we could say, more or less the 23.6% Fibonacci retracement level, which adds as further confluence in as far as looking for potential buy opportunities goes at this level over here, right? Having said that, we're not just going to buy just by virtue of having an inverted head and shoulders pattern, as well as the neckline aligning with the 23% Fibonacci retracement tool. We're going to look for further reasons for why at that level we should be looking for potential buy opportunities. And here we are on the weekly chart. And just to recap, guys, remember on the monthly chart we actually spoke about how let me just zoom out, how the market had given us this pattern over here, which is an inverted head and shoulders pattern, and we said this level is the neckline, and where we have the neckline is where we may potentially look for buy opportunities. And we also spoke about how this level over here, or this area, was the previous all-time high, and that whenever we have these areas where this level was the previous all-time high and price closes above it, what we want to see ideally is price come back to that area to give it a test, because it's a very strong level of support, and at that point is where we would look for potential buy opportunities. But let's zoom in and see what else is happening in regards to the weekly chart. Let's have a look. And on the weekly chart, I can see, or rather we can see, that we have this candlestick in addition to this one as well. And what these candlesticks are bearish candlesticks with relatively small bodies and long lower wicks. And by now you guys know that these candlesticks are carrying a lot of liquidity where they end, and this points to price potentially coming back to these areas in the future to grab that liquidity, and then only potentially we may see the market move further up, right? So what am I saying? What I'm saying in other words is that your price move further up from where it is currently, right? And then come back to this level, right? And remember I said at that level is where we may look for potential buy opportunities. It is quite possible that we may see price disregard this level by pushing further down to grab the liquidity associated with that candlestick, and then push further down again to that level to grab that liquidity as well, and then we may potentially see the market move further up, right? So we just need to be careful. So what else do we see, guys, at this point? At this point I don't see much. I'm just gonna head down to the daily chart, just bear with me. And here we are on the daily chart, and the first thing that I'm going to do in regards to the daily chart is add my daily channel. Excuse me, guys. So there goes my daily channel more or less. Let's have a look. And just remember that we just need to ensure that whatever drawings that we do indeed add to our charts are as close to perfection as possible. Okay, there we go, there we go, there we go. And excuse me guys, I'm a bit sick. But let's continue. And on the daily chart we have a gap over here, and what gaps are areas of liquidity. And as I always say, liquidity represents money, and that money needs to be triggered by the market sooner or later. So this tells us that there's a very, very big chance that we may see the market actually move further up to fill that gap. Just also bear in mind that we have those candlesticks at the bottom that I spoke about that are carrying all of that liquidity, and that the market may actually head down to grab those liquidity points and then only move further up, right? But what do we see on the daily chart that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I see on the daily chart that is very much interesting and important is that the market had also given us another smaller inverted head and shoulders pattern here, with the side being the left shoulder, this being the right shoulder, and this area over here being the head. And it also has a neckline in more or less the same area. So this means that this whole area over here is a very strong level of support. As remember, on the bigger time frames, we have that huge inverted head and shoulders pattern, and it has a neckline there as well. And now that we're on the daily chart, we have a smaller over here inverted head and shoulders pattern, which also has a neckline more or less at the same area. So this means that this excuse me again, guys, as I was saying, this means that this whole area over here is a very strong level of support, a very, very strong level of support, and chances are we're gonna see the market move further up. Another thing that tells us that this level is very strong is the fact that we have this channel over here, and as you can see, it now acts as dynamic support, right? So we actually have two areas of support. We have this support line as well as this diagonal support, right? So as I said, chances are we're going to see the market from this level move further down, and at least to that level. And why do I say that level? That is because I'm just going to mark that area as well. Actually, just bear with me. Let's see. I'm just going to mark this level. It's the all-time high at this point in time, and it's a very important level, because if you were to look at that candlestick as well, what it is a bullish candlestick which has quite a small body and a very long upper wick, and where that wick starts or ends at the top, we also have a lot of liquidity there, right? We have a lot of money stuck here as well, and it would actually make sense for price, because it's at a very strong level of support at this point in time, right, to move up to fill this gap, as well as to continue to move further up to grab the liquidity associated with the candlestick. And at that point again is where we may potentially actually see the market potentially give us a double top, and we may see price come back to this level again, right? And at this level is where we may potentially again evaluate and look for the way forward, right? That's it. And as far as my daily chart goes, I'm just gonna head down to the H4 chart, and let's have a look on the H4 chart. And in fact, before we continue, let's just recap. Remember guys, on the daily chart we also spoke about how we have the smaller inverted head and shoulders pattern which has a neckline there, and price came back to the neckline to give it a test, and at this point is where we may see the market move further up, especially also because the very same level is a very strong level of support, and we have this channel as well supporting that area, right? To add to this, we also have what seems to be another overextended W structure over here on the H4 chart, which has a neckline there, right? So at this point in time, a lot of traders and investors actually bought there and placed their stop losses just below. Others are waiting for price to close sufficiently above the neckline, and then for price to come back to the neckline to give it a test, and at that point is where they will look for further buy opportunities, and their first take profit would be around here somewhere, right? But so far, and as far as buy opportunities go, I really don't see any. I'm just going to add my neckline for this particular W structure, right, which is over here, right? But just based on all of the reasons that I've given you, it seems as though we are going to see price actually, subject to, by the way, fundamentals, close above the neckline and then shoot probably to like here, and at this point we may potentially get a double top, and if price gives us that, at this point is where I would look for potential sell opportunities. I would look for potential sell opportunities. And the reason why I say so is because if I can just zoom out again, remember we still have this area, right? And if we were to go back to the daily chart, let's just make it bigger. And in fact, let's go back to the weekly chart, right? On the weekly chart, a lot of, as I said earlier, investors are waiting for the market to come back to this level, and at that level is where they will try to push the market further up, right? So that is it as far as my analysis goes, and peace out.